we're live. Welcome to the Raindance audience and to Steve Markle, director of this remarkable documentary feature, Shoot to Marry. It's my pleasure to be hosting this discussion. The Q&A will last approximately 20 minutes and the audience will be able to ask questions. Please use the Q&A box to ask your questions. So, Steve, it's been a successful run throughout film festivals. Slamdance 2020, in January, you had the preview of this film, the premiere. You won the Audience Award for documentary feature there. You won another award at the Canadian Film Fest in June for Best Feature. It's a remarkable start of this journey. So are you happy to be here with us in the UK now?
Yes, it would be strange if my answer was no. Yes, of course, this is delightful. And thank you to everybody for watching. Thanks for watching the film. You know, working on the film for over 5 years, somehow you don't think anyone's ever going to see the damn thing. When the film just lived on my laptop, it didn't feel like a real movie, and it's so rewarding and just thrilling that it's now out there and people are watching it, and I hope enjoying it.
That's right. This journey took you from the age of 42 to the age of 47, right?
That's exactly right.
So it was a long gestation period.
That's right. Well, I filmed for about a year, you know, meeting all of these fantastic women. And then I sort of put the project away. I kind of shelved it for, well, I thought I'll shelve it for a few months just to come back to it with fresh eyes. And then a few months turned into 5 years. I think I became nervous to look at it because I'm very self-critical with my work, and I was afraid I wasn't going to like it. So I thought, you know, but eventually I found the courage to take a look at what I had filmed, and I thought, you know, I think there's something there. And at that point, Aaron and I had married. So I thought, well, now I got an ending for the film. This is last year, and
That's definitely a very good twist.
Yes, yes. It wasn't the ending that I was expecting when I set out to film this thing. I never thought in a million years that I would actually meet someone this way, and that this is how the film would end. I imagined that, you know, maybe the end of the film would be that I was still single, still alone, but maybe through having met all of these interesting women that I would evolve in some way, learn a thing or two along the way, and perhaps piece myself back together and be in a better place to eventually meet someone. But that I actually met someone was amazing.
Steve, I've got to be honest with you. I read the blurb and I thought, oh dear, this is another vanity project. But actually, what transpires from the movie when you see it is a search for love, and it's a poignant examination of what makes people connect. So was that your initial goal, or did it spur from the proposal rejection, this idea for the film?
I mean, I certainly didn't want it to seem like a vanity project or some self-serving project, which is always the danger when you put yourself at the center of, you know, of a film. But I knew going in that I would be, you know, if I was going to put myself at the center of a story, I would have to be completely sort of open and authentic and vulnerable and show my pain. That was really the point of starting this. Is I coming out of that last relationship, the breakup, it was devastating, and I spent, you know, 3-4 months just sort of crying on my couch in my apartment. And eventually I thought, you know, maybe there's a chance here to put my pain into art. And I sort of used the doc as a way to rebuild myself. And I thought maybe by sharing my heartbreak and my journey, that might connect with other people. I mean, you can't get through life without getting your heart broken a few times.
It
So
definitely feels like a therapeutic uh, thing that you've done, but surely you've been thinking about using this tool of filmmaking for this purpose. And here are the ethical considerations. Did you think about it? Did you have any doubt that it would come out? Did the project that it did come out?
well, no, but that's part of the joy of documentary filmmaking, is you don't know how it's going to end, and in a sense, you're finding the film as you go. Really, you find the film ultimately when you're editing it. It's whereas a scripted film, your screenplay becomes the blueprint for what you film. A documentary, it's the opposite. You go in with perhaps some general sense of what you're trying to do, and maybe an outline of some kind, but it's not until the editing that you really find the story. And mostly it's a process of elimination, because of course you end up throwing away a lot more stuff than keeping.
And to me, throughout the film, you're not just looking for a partner. To me, you're kind of unlocking a part of yourself as well in the process.
That's exactly right. I was sort of making myself whole again. It's a cliche, but you really do have to love yourself, or at least like yourself, before you're in a place where you can meet somebody. So that was really my main goal, was just to, yeah, feel good about myself again.
And what was the response from all the women that you interviewed? Um, did they see the film in its final form?
Well, Aaron likes it. That's really the most important thing. It's become a very fun story for us to tell. People always ask, how do you, people wonder how you met your partner. And we have this now very romantic, interesting story to tell about how we met. To be honest, I haven't been in touch with too many of the other women in the film. I let everybody know that it was done and how they could see it. But it's been a crazy year. So I haven't heard back from most of the women. People are busy with their lives and dealing with the madness of 2020. But I heard back from a few of the women who, thank goodness, were delighted by it.
Good. The only thing that you didn't film was your new proposal to Erin, but I guess she would have killed you otherwise, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So just so the audience knows, Erin is not going to join us today. Do you want to tell us a bit about what she's doing?
Oh, Erin started a new school program this past September, a few months ago. She's doing a social work program, as well as a master's in psychodynamic therapy. So she's sort of juggling two programs at the same time. And this is a new path for Erin, because she has spent the last 5 years or so in the arts, mostly in writing, and well, that's what you see in the doc, was that she was writing her novel, which she finished, and it was great. But being an artist is, of course, challenging, and so she decided to take a different path, and she's going to help others through social work.
Well, the film is kind of a beacon of hope for people like me, like you, like many people in the world who are in relationships with partners much younger than they are. So I know that for Erin, that was a big issue at the beginning.
Right.
Was there ever a consideration for you?
It definitely did feel like a thing at the beginning. Now, Aaron and I talk about this. Now we don't think anything of it. I mean, eventually you just see a person for who they are, and you don't see age. At the beginning, yes, we both felt it, and it felt a little bit, maybe a little awkward, um, but within maybe a few months, it was no longer a thing.
Great. And I've noticed that 4 story editors helped you for the film. So was that help to kind of structure it more like a romantic comedy? Or can you tell us their input in the film?
Sorry, I missed it because you got a
Yeah,
bit.
I've noticed that you worked with 4 story editors on the
Oh,
film.
story,
So
yeah,
what was their
yeah,
input on the
gotcha,
film? Did they help you in the sense that they structured it like a romantic comedy?
gotcha. Well, so there were, yeah, the 4 people, as you said, credited as story editors. 2 of them were researchers who helped me to find all of these interesting women. So, when I first started out, I was finding all the women on my own. But it's a big job. It's a lot of work because you have to reach out to, hundreds of women to get a few yeses. So eventually I decided that it would be smart to bring some researchers on. So 2 of the people credited were researchers. The other 2 were friends who would watch rough cuts with me and would offer feedback.
One last question from me, because I see
Yeah.
that the audience are already waiting to ask their own
Okay.
questions. Uh, it's been 16 years since your last documentary, Camp Hollywood. So how is the state of affairs in Canada? Is it difficult to get projects off the ground?
Well, there are grants that are available in Canada. The biggest one is called Telefilm. It's a,
Yeah, quite famous, Telefilm
yeah.
Canada.
But the way that I worked for both this project and my previous doc was I paid for them completely out of my own pocket. I'm not good with, I'm not good with forms, trying to get grants, a lot of paperwork. It frightens me, all the paperwork. So, yeah, they're not expensive films to make. I'm a 1-person crew. So I just grabbed my camera. A lot of it was shot with an iPhone, actually. It was shot in part with the Canon 5D, and a lot of the B-roll stuff was filmed with an iPhone. So it's an inexpensive type of film to make. So I was able to just, just use my own gear and go out and make it. Um, but yeah, the state of Canadian industry, I mean, it's very vibrant industry here. We've got lots of filmmakers and lots of content being shot in Canada.
Right. I've got the first question from the audience for you. Was it an easy decision to make yourself a protagonist of your own documentary?
Yeah, it was, in that when I first started, I had been sitting alone in my apartment, feeling shitty about myself. And, it was kind of therapeutic. I thought, I'm just going to start. I set up a camera and I thought, I'm just going to film myself talking to the camera, sort of stream of consciousness stuff. This didn't end up in the film, but this is really how I started. It became a way to, it was sort of self-therapy, talking to the camera. But then at a certain point, I thought, I should really get out of the apartment. This is not healthy. And I started interviewing other people. So it wasn't necessarily the focus at the very beginning. I interviewed my parents, my therapist, my rabbi. It was only maybe 2-3 months in, because at first I thought, okay, maybe this will be a doc about relationships and I'll get advice from people. A few months in, I thought, I should really focus my interviews on women, so that I can learn about relationships and women from women. But also, I thought, who knows, maybe this can be a way to click with someone and create a new relationship. So the idea kind of came as I went. I started filming before I really had the idea, and then I just sort of fell into it.
Great. I see that we're still waiting for more questions from the audience, so I'll ask you a question. It was great to see how you started your documentary with this story of your parents, and how cyclically you ended it with Erin's father and his passing. So how important was the story of your parents for you?
Huge. I mean, you know, as I show in the film, my parents have been together at this point for, I think, 54 years, and they're the perfect example to me of what a marriage should look like. They love each other. They're, as my mom says, they're still attracted to each other. It's beautiful. And so I've always wanted in my life the relationship that they have. That's what has driven me in my adult life. I know marriage isn't for everybody, but for me, I think marriage is I like the idea of it, of spending your life with somebody, growing old with somebody. I think that's beautiful. And I'm lucky that I had my parents as this great example to me. And as you say, at the end of the film, we see the loss of Erin's dad. And really that becomes what the film in a big sense is about. It's the fact that all relationships, one way or another, end in loss. And so we have to appreciate the moment and appreciate the people in our lives who are with us today.
Great. I've got another question from the audience. It's an extremely funny and quirky film, but also very warm and full of emotion. How did you work to keep the right balance between those elements?
That's a good question. Well, as I was filming, I kept a diary. And I would jot down how I was feeling day to day, which, you know, in the first few months after the breakup, I tended to feel really down about myself. And I had that voice in my head. I was constantly feeding myself, you know, negativity. And my mood lightened as through meeting all of these people, my mood lightened and I started finding the humor in the whole thing. And so I would write down those kind of thoughts. And as I was editing the film, I went back to my diary and was drawing from that to piece the voiceover together and find the proper, you know, the right range of emotional beats. You need humor because life is funny. And
well, what I liked about the film is that your own self-deprecating humor. For example, in the scene in the sex club, when you're approached by the guy and you're saying, you know, it wasn't my idea to be sitting next to a naked guy. So I mean, that's just an example. It's great to see all that woven into the structure of the movie.
Yes, and you know, the comedy stuff that comes more easily to me than the raw human emotion stuff. Humor has been, especially in uncomfortable situations, humor is my go-to. In a way, I've sometimes used humor in my life as a mask or as a crutch to get through uncomfortable situations. So humor for me is easy. But with age and maturity, I've found a way to tap into the more vulnerable, real side of myself as well.
As we talked about the sex club, how easy or difficult was it to film inside a sex club?
Well, the hard part was getting permissions afterward.
I bet.
And I did. I managed to do it. I would, you know, after the shoot ended, it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning or something, and I stood outside with my stack of release forms, and as people were coming out of the club, I introduced myself and explained what I was doing and that I captured some footage in the club. But you know what? Every person signed the release, and it turns out they're all a bunch of exhibitionists. No one was shy at that club. So no one was, everyone was totally, I mean, I blurred their faces, but everybody was perfectly happy to participate and be included in the film. So that was lucky. And so, yeah, it was a blast, really. I mean, like I say in the doc, I'd never been to a sex club. It was something I'd always kind of maybe thought about or even fantasized about, but in the end, the real thing didn't really live up to the fantasy, which is so often the case, that the reality is often not as enjoyable as the fantasy of something.
For me, this documentary is one of the most fully realized films that I've seen this year at Raindance, and you managed to keep it under the normal running time of about 90 minutes. So it's an hour and a quarter. How many hours did you actually shoot? What did you have to sift through?
That's a good question. I mean, I wasn't keeping track, but hundreds of hours. I mean, I filmed for a year. And because I didn't have a clear sense of what I was doing, only a sort of a vague sense, I probably overshot because I was trying to find my film sort of as I went. You know, other documentaries are outlined in much greater detail, and so you can be much more focused about what you film. But in my case, I was sort of finding my film as I went along, which meant filming an enormous amount, hundreds of hours. I couldn't give you an exact number. And so editing was a big job.
Painstaking.
Yeah, huge. And deciding, you know, like I said, you exclude more footage than you end up keeping. So that's always tough. You know, what do you leave out? Because you end up having to leave out a lot of great stuff. I filmed with many women who aren't in the film, not because they weren't interesting, but because you're trying to give shape to a year of life. You try, you know, to condense 1 year into 90 minutes and create story from that, a beginning, middle, and an end, and some journey that will hopefully be meaningful and moving to people. That means pulling a lot of stuff out for pacing and yeah, and to get it down to time. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. I don't think there's anything more from the audience. So before we go, I know we're nearly running out of time. A question for you. Do you have any of Heidi Lee's hats in your collection right now? And show us, please.
I only have the one that you saw in the movie, but it's a killer. I mean, come on, right?
Oh, fantastic.
I mean, and as she says in the movie, this hat will do good things for you, and I should just keep it on all the time.
Well, I think it did. You came to Raindance London,
Yeah.
so it's a good way to wrap it up. So thank you very much, Steve. If you, member of the audience, have enjoyed this movie, if you've enjoyed any other movies, please donate to Raindance, because we're surviving through these donations of £5 per movie. You can find information on the website. It's raindance.org/donate. From me, Mickey La Rosa, film curator and writer, it's a big thank you to all of you. Thanks, Steve. I can hear the audience virtually clapping for you. So let's wrap it up. See you next time.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.